Great. Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Tori. I am a product designer in the configure stage. Today, Maria, who is also a product designer in configure, and myself are going to talk through infrastructure as code, which falls specifically under the system group. And we're going to run through what we're currently doing to understand our domain, how we've reached an MVC, and what research we're working on to help support our overall vision of this area of the product. So first I want to touch on what infrastructure as code means, and it comes down to management of your infrastructure using code just like you would your application. And this has a few benefits like being able to version control all your files. It increases domain knowledge across your team because everything is already written down within your repository. You're able to make use of standard practices like code review, continuous integration, and continuous delivery. And you're also able to reuse the same file across products to build your infrastructure rather than having to start over for each one. And there's a lot of different infrastructure as code tools that exist today. And this slide kind of goes over a brief generic rundown of the different types. There are server templating tools, which are used to create an image of a server that can be easily reused. There's also provisioning tools that help with the creation and management of your infrastructure, and these are things like servers or load balancers. Configure management tools help you to install and manage software on existing servers, and orchestration tools help you manage virtual machines and containers. But you don't need all of these tools, and few people use all of them. Teams have to decide which tools work best for their organization based on a variety of trade-offs. Like, for example, configuration management tools do some provisioning, and provisioning tools do some configuration management. Also, if you're using a server templating tool, then a lot of configuration management is done for you already. So when you're first starting, it can be difficult for teams to kind of know what to pick or what will work best for them. So at GitLab, we've already integrated Kubernetes into our product, like I'm sure most of you have heard or seen about already. In the last showcase I did, I briefly touched on our work with making a cluster management project that creates a separate project which manages the installation of the cluster applications using code. So you're using a project to install something which is infrastructure as code. So this is basically our first kind of dive into our first feature related to IAC within GitLab. In the system group, we're now focused on expanding our IAC features to include Terraform support. So I want to look at what Terraform is a little bit. Terraform is essentially a tool for building, changing, and versioning infrastructure. Essentially, it means that users create configuration files. Terraform then has something called Terraform plan, which you can run to show all the changes that will be made to your infrastructure based on the code changes that you've made. After Terraform plan has run, you use something called Terraform apply to apply the changes you've made in your code to your infrastructure. And within GitLab, these can exist as jobs within your pipeline, and you can go see, for example, the output of a Terraform plan in a job log. So we've decided to invest in Terraform as an organization because it's become kind of the de facto standard of infrastructure as code tools. And there's been an extreme growth of Terraform users in the last number of years. The number of contributors, stars, open source libraries, the number of jobs that are available to people who have Terraform experience have all grown exponentially in the last few years. We also want to provide an alternative set of IAC features for users who may not have a need to utilize Kubernetes. So an example of that is, I believe our own ops team uses Terraform to create groups within Google Cloud Platform. And this isn't something that you would use Kubernetes for. So different use cases for different tools. When we started to transition towards working with Terraform in the system group, we learned that a lot of our team members are newer to this tool and we wanted to really take the time to ramp up as a team. So we've all decided to read this book, Terraform Up and Running, which provides an overview of infrastructure as code and then gets deeper into specific Terraform demos that you can follow along with. We'll also create our own project using Terraform and record a demo of us using it, which we'll then share in our team call to just increase knowledge of what you can do with Terraform and how it can be used. So while we're all working on becoming more proficient with Terraform, we're also working towards an MVC in true GitLab fashion. Victor is our PM for this group, and he's set up a number of customer interviews just to better understand how users are currently using Terraform and what may be of use to them. From that, we've determined that users want an aggregated output of their Terraform plan job within merge requests. And again, the Terraform plan runs, it shows an output of the resources that will be added, changed, or removed based on the changes within your code. So as MVC here at the bottom of the slide, we've created a proposal that adds this content to the merge request widget, and then it'll link out to the job log if users want more information. We've also opened a problem validation research issue in order to get a broader understanding of how users are using or may want to utilize Terraform in their own workflow, and how we can integrate and support that within GitLab. So we've identified a number of core questions and additional questions that will then turn into a survey to send out to users. And we want to make our infrastructure as code offering viable. So as a team, we've been using an Epic to keep track of this work. In the Epic, we've had customers who have contributed directly, and we've linked to our existing customer interviews. And I also just want to give a shout out to Mayank, who is our alliance manager at GitLab, who spoke directly with HashiCorp. HashiCorp is the organization behind Terraform, and we were able to get their insight and feedback directly, which was awesome. And all of these things have enabled us to quickly identify some potential iterations in our Terraform offering. And I've linked a few of them in this slide. So now I'm going to hand it over to Maria to talk a little bit more about the research we're doing to help support our vision.
Thank you. Hello from myself as well. I'm going to talk about the wider user research initiative we have in order to understand kind of how Terraform is used and who are the users. If you can move to the next slide, please, Tori. I'm going to talk more about the specifics of the research further down, but why did we decide to start the research? So the PM, Victor, has created two issues that require UX input. The one is about the user journey. So as you can see here, this is done when UX understands the user journey. So we don't at the moment. And in order to do so, we need to talk to users. The next thing Victor wants to find out in the next slide is the GitLab Terraform flow for different users. So infrastructure as code has a number of personas using it. So it's not clear what workflow each persona has and would like. So this specific issue is about documenting these workflows, but we also need to understand them in order to design Terraform in GitLab. And in the next issue, another contribution that I see this research helping with is a vision. So this is the vision screenshot of the vision page. It's kind of minimal, and also, as you can see in the highlighted part, Victor is asking for customer input on the ways they're using infrastructure as code. So I think we can also bring some insights from users that might not be in our customer base. Also, top user issues is to be decided, so hopefully we can identify some of those. Next slide, please. So what questions are we trying to answer through this research? First question is around personas. So understand the different personas and their individual needs and use cases around infrastructure as code and Terraform more specifically. And hopefully identify the primary persona who we need to design primarily for. Then, as I mentioned before, the user journey. So understand how the users would like to use Terraform in the GitLab UI, and maybe terminal would be a next step. So a follow-up research. Terraform at the moment is not very discoverable. So it's a project, but a user needs to know that we provide this functionality and create a project for infrastructure as code. Then how users expect to navigate to a Terraform project. Is it a different way? Is it the way they currently navigate to projects? We also have an assumption that the project and the development flow for infrastructure as code would be the same as the application development. And that's something we would like to validate, whether there are different needs or not. And also we are missing the part of what happens after they deploy their project. So what kind of information do they want to see? What do they want to monitor, etc. Currently, they're probably using other tools, but this is knowledge we can bring into GitLab as well. Then regarding the integration with Terraform, if users were going to use GitLab, we would like to see example of projects, understand what workflow each persona is following, identify what problems they're currently having, and also the good things. We shouldn't only focus on the bad things. And plus identify what would create a delightful experience for our users. So identify what alerts and notifications they would need. Also, there is some possible opportunities for chat ops, which is another part of the system group, which means that they can run commands via Slack through a bot. So hopefully with this research, we can contribute to the strategy and vision for infrastructure as code. Next slide, please. So participants for this research, I was thinking that it would be useful to have GitLab and non-GitLab users, because maybe we have use cases from people who do not use GitLab at the moment, and potentially bring them to GitLab by accommodating their use cases. A mix of experience levels, but probably doing hands-on work. Then, as we saw in the previous slide, we have many personas, but this research will focus on the software developers, DevOps engineers, and system admins, who are the main personas using infrastructure as code, as far as I'm aware. And then I would like to probably reach out to the solution architects of GitLab, because they have knowledge of customers. So how to recruit them? Some personal connections from previous jobs or friends in tech. GitLab internal users. So our SREs, our infrastructure team is using infrastructure as code. Solution architects, maybe backend engineers who have experience from previous roles. And also there are customers who are willing to participate in research. So the customers that Victor has already interviewed, or customers who have signed up with the research team. Next slide, please. So the method is going to be semi-structured interviews. So a script of questions that aim to cover the main things we want to learn, but also they're open to conversation on interesting points the users make. And duration, hopefully an hour, because as you can see, the script is quite long, and it involves some persona research as well as infrastructure as code research. I've posted the script here if you want to take a look later. Next slide, please. So far, I've conducted 3 interviews, 2 internal, a backend developer from the system team and an SRE, and 1 external with the DevOps lead. I'm still transcribing these recordings to notes. So I have learnings in my head, but not somewhere documented. And as next steps, as Tori mentioned, we're reading the book. So I would like to first read the book so that then I can review the interview script and maybe adjust it a bit to find out more specific things on the technical details I learned from the book. Then plan the research timelines. So estimate the time needed for all the interviews, decide how many interviews per persona, define the milestones with the PM, and create an epic to add all the findings. Recruit the participants and schedule the interviews. And then after all the interviews are done, analyze the findings, probably through qualitative analysis in this case. So affinity diagrams would be a good method. And finally, discuss the findings with the team and decide the next steps. Any questions?